Namaste, a very warm welcome everyone. This is Professor Ajeet Jaiswal, Head Department of Anthropology, is back with another captivating lecture series on Indigenous Knowledge System from the Earth for the Future. Today we will embark on the journey to discover the treasures hidden within the India's diverse indigenous communities. So this is the 14th lecture. In the previous lecture, that is 13th one, we discussed about the indigenous knowledge system and the structure of indigenous community in India. If you have missed that, then see the link given over here. This lecture dives deep into the remarkable scope of indigenous knowledge system in India, exploring the ecological genius, uncover the intricate knowledge of plant, animal and the environmental possessed by indigenous community. Natural healers witness the power of traditional medicine practices like Ayurveda and folk medicine used by indigenous healers. We'll also see the farming with nature, discover sustainable agricultural techniques that promote biodiversity and food security. We'll also the cultural tapestry, explores the rich tradition, ritual and stories that transmit knowledge across generations. We'll also see the community power. We'll also learn about the self-governance structure that ensure the preservation of indigenous knowledge systems. We have seen while these communities face threat, there is a hope. We'll discuss ways to support indigenous rights, preserve cultural heritage, and integrate indigenous knowledge system into sustainable development. Professor Jaiswal is here, that is, I am here to answer your question about indigenous knowledge system, traditional medicine, or any area related to anthropology. Don't miss out. New video will drop at 1 p.m. Hit that notification bell to stay tuned. Now let's start discussing about scope of indigenous knowledge system, especially from the Indian context. So in Indian context, indigenous knowledge system represent a wealth of traditional knowledge, practice, belief and wisdom that have been developed and preserved by indigenous community over centuries. These knowledge systems are deeply rooted into the cultural, social and environmental context of India's diverse indigenous people. We also call it scheduled tribe or Adivasi. Here are some of the key aspects of indigenous knowledge system in Indian context. First one is ecological knowledge. Indigenous community in India intricate knowledge that local ecosystem including plant, animal, soil, water and weather pattern. This ecological knowledge is derived from generation of observation, experimentation and interaction with the natural environment. It includes practices such as sustainable agriculture, forest management, water harvesting and biodiversity conservation techniques that are adapted to specific ecological conditions. Next is traditional medicine. India has a rich tradition of indigenous healing system, including Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani, and various forms of traditional folk medicine practiced by different indigenous community. Indigenous healers, often referred to as a Ved, are traditional medicine practitioners. They utilize medicinal plants, herbs, minerals, and therapeutic techniques to maintain health and treat ailments. Along with that, traditional medicine practices are often integrated with spiritual belief and cultural ritual and holistic approach and well-being. We'll also discuss in this present context about the agricultural practices. Indigenous agricultural practices in India are adapted to diverse agroclimatic conditions and reflect a deep understanding of local ecosystem and agricultural biodiversity. These practices include crop diversity, mixed cropping, crop rotation, organic farming, and traditional seed saving techniques. Indigenous farming utilizes indigenous knowledge system to enhance soil fertility, pest management, water conservation, and resilience to climate variability, contributing to food security and rural livelihood. Similarly, if we try to understand the cultural practices and rituals, indigenous knowledge system in India encompasses a rich in fabric of cultural practices, rituals, ceremonies, storytelling tradition, and artistic expression that transmit knowledge, value, and identity across generations. These cultural practices are integral to social fabric, cultural identity, and spiritual well-being of indigenous communities. They serve to reinforce cultural resilience, social cohesion, and intergenerational transmission of traditional knowledge. Similarly, if we try to understand the common community governance, many indigenous communities in India have a traditional system of governance and decision making that are based on the principle of consensus building, participatory democracy, and collective ownership of resources. This governance structure play a crucial role in preserving indigenous knowledge system by ensuring that decisions related to land use, decisions related to resource management, decisions related to cultural practices are made in consultation with community members and in alignment with the traditional knowledge and value. Similarly, if you see, there is a series of challenges and opportunities. Despite the richness and value of indigenous knowledge system, indigenous community in India face various challenges including marginalization, land dispossession, loss of traditional knowledge, and cultural assimilation. However, there are also opportunities to strengthen indigenous knowledge system through initiatives that recognize and support indigenous rights, cultural preservation, sustainable development, and intercultural dialogue. Overall, indigenous knowledge system in India, especially in the Indian context, represent a vital soul of wisdom, resilience, and cultural diversity that can contribute to sustainable development, environmental conservation, public health, and social justice. Recognizing, respecting, and integrating indigenous knowledge system into policy, research, and development initiative is essential for promoting inclusive and equitable development that respect indigenous rights, cultural heritage, and environmental sustainability. If you see the scope of indigenous knowledge system in India, the scope of indigenous knowledge system in India in the Indian context is vast and diverse, encompassing a wide range of domains that are deeply rooted into the cultural, social, and environmental heritage of indigenous community. If you see, there is ecological knowledge and sustainable development. So there is a key concept that include indigenous knowledge system has a significant relevance and application in India. As I told you, the first one is ecological knowledge and sustainable resource management. Indigenous community in India have developed a sophisticated ecological knowledge system that are tailored to local ecosystem and biodiversity. This includes practice such as agroforestry, traditional water harvesting, soil conservation, and biodiversity conservation techniques. Indigenous knowledge system offer valuable insight into sustainable resource management and resilience to environmental challenges, contributing to efforts for biodiversity conservation and climate change adaptation. Next is traditional medicine and healthcare. India has a rich tradition of indigenous healing system, including Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani, and various forms of traditional folk medicine practiced by different indigenous community. Indigenous knowledge system in healthcare encompasses the use of medicinal plants, herbs, minerals, and therapeutic techniques for maintaining health and treating ailments. Integrating in traditional medicine with modern healthcare system can enhance access to healthcare services, promote holistic well-being, and preserve cultural heritage. Similarly, if you see the agricultural practices and food security, indigenous agricultural practices in India are adapted to diverse agroclimatic conditions and play a crucial role in ensuring food security for millions of people. Traditional farming method, crop varieties, soil fertility management technique, and water harvesting practices reflect indigenous knowledge system that promote sustainable agriculture, enhance resilience to climate variability, and conserve genetic diversity. Similarly, if we try to understand the cultural heritage and artistic tradition, indigenous knowledge system in India encompasses a rich information of cultural practices, rituals, ceremonies, storytelling traditions, and artistic expression that transmit knowledge, value, and identity across generations. These cultural heritage practices contribute to social cohesion, community identity, and intergenerational transmission of traditional knowledge, fostering cultural diversity and resilience. Similarly, if we try to understand another important point, that is community governance and decision making. Many indigenous communities in India have a traditional system of governance and decision making that are based on the principle of consensus building, reciprocity, and collective ownership of resources. Indigenous knowledge system inform community-led initiative for natural resource management, conflict resolution, and sustainable development, promoting local self-governance and empowerment. Similarly, if you see, the another important point is education and intercultural dialogue. Recognizing the value of indigenous knowledge system in education can promote intercultural dialogue, respect for diverse worldview, and inclusive approach to knowledge generation and dissemination. Integrating indigenous perspective into the formal education system can enhance the relevance and effectiveness of educational practices, empower indigenous youth, and bridge gap between the traditional and modern knowledge system. So overall, if you see, the scope of indigenous knowledge system in Indian context is multifaceted and dynamic, offering valuable insight, solution, and perspective for addressing contemporary challenges such as environmental degradation, public health, food security, cultural preservation and social justice. Recognizing, respecting and integrating indigenous knowledge system into the policy making, into the research and development initiative is essential for promoting sustainable development and fostering equitable partnership between indigenous community and external stakeholders. That's all for today. If you have any doubt, any queries related to the last lecture or related to the present lecture, then you can ask through the comment section. Thank you. Thank you so much. Namaste.